When Caleb was born, I was 35 weeks pregnant, and we had a hemorrhage. It was a fetal maternal hemorrhage. The way that it was explained to me is basically that the umbilical cord ruptured. So he was 35 weeks gestation. He was born by an emergency C-section because his heart rate was in the 20s. He was not doing well at all. When he was born, he was gray, lifeless. He was having seizures at birth. All of his APGAR scores were 0, so it didn't look real good. He was struggling. He was dying when he was born. The underlying conditions that stem from that are cerebral palsy, epilepsy. He has a vision impairment, and several other more minor issues that go along with it. But those are the main 3 things that we deal with, epilepsy being the one that's causing the most trouble at this point. Faith, family, carried us through a lot. Caleb initially, for about the first 2.5 to 3 years, was extremely fussy. Children with brain damage just don't know how to self-soothe. They don't know how to not cry a lot. So that's what he spent most of his time doing in the very beginning. It was difficult. So the only thing that got us through was our Christian faith, knowing that this too will pass, and we had a really good family support. Caleb today is completely different than what he was as a baby. He is the happiest kid that you've ever met. When he turned about 2.5, 3 years old, we started seeing a lot more happiness from Caleb. And now he's 8, and he smiles over everything. He laughs about everything. He can be sick and still has a smile on his face. He can have 40 seizures a day and still want to play and be silly. He can't sit on his own or stand on his own or go to the bathroom, but he can do everything else. He can smile and light up an entire room, world, whatever he wants to light up. He has a G-tube. That's the only surgery that he's had so far. We had his G-tube placed 2 years ago because the amount of medication that he was taking was increasing steadily, and none of that med tastes good. So he was having trouble aspirating and getting choked. So we had the G-tube placed so that even if he has a seizure and is not able to take it orally, or if for any reason just the taste of the med was too powerful that he couldn't tolerate it, we're able to give his meds directly into his tummy. A lot of times we get out and go for walks first thing in the morning when the sun's coming up and it's peaceful and it's really pretty, and he just laughs and just goes crazy going down the gravel driveway because it's bumpy and he thinks that that's fun. Daddy and Caleb aren't much different than most dads and their sons because they have a knife collection that they get out and go through together, and Caleb thinks that that's awesome, and they play silly fun games and act like wild people running through the house, and riding the 4-wheeler and going swimming together, just different things. Wayne likes to get him out in the woods like he would. If he had had a typical son, they would have hunted together. So they still get out and ride through the mud and go through the woods and have a good time. His papa, my dad, and him have a bond that is not like anything I've ever seen. My dad could come in and Caleb could hear his voice, and it was like a calm came over him. I've never been able to do that myself. I joke with my dad and tell him he's the Caleb whisperer, because even now when Caleb sees my dad, his papa, he goes crazy.
Caleb is my grandson, and all of my grandchildren, when I think of them, just well my heart up with pride because I just love all of my grandchildren. Caleb himself, though, is special, and not because he's special needs, because he's just been through so much in his 8 years of life. I can't imagine how he still is so cheerful and happy all the time. And whenever you see him, he especially when his papa walks in, he just gets those little happy feet, and he's squealing and just enjoying his papa, just loves his grandpa, and that kind of makes me a little jealous, but that's okay because Caleb is just a joy to be around.
What can I say? There's nothing special about me. He's the special one. He's the one that's brought the joy and the tears and the laughter into our lives. And I just look forward to spending eternity with him in heaven someday.
My dad is also my pastor, so when my dad's preaching on Sunday mornings, Caleb is usually squealing and laughing and trying to say Papa while he's preaching. Dad's also taught him how to say amen, so sometimes Caleb is the only one that says amen during a difficult sermon.
So he enjoys church.
He does, he loves it. When the choir is singing, he tries to sing. When the kids do the penny march, he laughs and squeals and has a good time just like everybody else. A lot of people ask me, would I change anything about Caleb? And when I think about it, I mean, I would love for Caleb to be able to run and play and do things that typical kids do. But that wasn't God's plan for Caleb, so who am I to say I would change that? So no, I wouldn't change it. I wish that some things could be different, but I know as a Christian that one day they will be different. He is the most well-rounded person that I know. He's content no matter what's going on, and he is just a peaceful, fun-loving, awesome kid. He just is so happy no matter what circumstances he faces. And I think there's a lot to learn from somebody who is like that. He's a really awesome person, and I think life is worth living no matter what the challenges are.
Got no trouble today. With anyone.